Before we open the files on this classified operation and uncover the tragic sequence of events that defined this case, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel to support our work in declassifying these lost stories of the Cold War. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon in November 1983, the atmosphere inside the Applied Physics Laboratory in Laurel, Maryland, was one of celebratory restraint. The facility, a sprawling complex of brick and concrete hidden behind layers of security checkpoints and chain-link fences, was not known for social gatherings. It was a place of serious men doing serious work, a place where the hum of mainframes and the scratching of pencils on graph paper were the soundtrack to the arms race. But on this specific afternoon, the staff of the Guidance Systems Division had gathered in the break room for a rare moment of levity. The occasion was the 60th birthday of Dr. Arthur Sterling, a man whose name was unknown to the American public, but whose mind was considered a national asset by the Pentagon. Sterling was the division head, a brilliant, soft-spoken physicist who had spent the last decade refining the gyroscopic stabilizers used in the Trident missile program. He was a man of habits, a widower who lived for his work and treated his team of junior engineers not as subordinates, but as surrogate sons. He stood near the coffee machine, looking slightly uncomfortable with the attention, holding a paper plate with a slice of sheet cake. Standing to his right was Harrison Cole, his executive assistant and protege. Cole was 28 years old, bright-eyed, ambitious, and by all accounts devoted to Sterling. He had been working with the doctor for 4 years, managing his schedule, organizing his research notes, and ensuring that the chaotic brilliance of Sterling's mind remained tethered to the bureaucratic requirements of the Department of Defense. Cole was the one who had organized the party. He was the one who had collected the small contributions from the other staff members for a gift. At 2:15 p.m., Cole cleared his throat and tapped a spoon against his coffee mug. The room went quiet. Cole gave a short speech praising Sterling's mentorship and his contributions to the field of inertial navigation. It was a heartfelt tribute. Witnesses later recalled that Cole seemed emotional, his voice catching slightly as he spoke about how much Sterling had taught him. He then reached into his jacket pocket and produced a small rectangular box wrapped in dark blue paper. He handed the box to Sterling. The older man smiled, embarrassed but pleased. He unwrapped the paper carefully, revealing a black velvet case. Inside lay a fountain pen. It was a magnificent instrument, heavy and sleek, with a barrel made of polished black resin and accents of gold. It was a Mont Blanc Meisterstück, a classic writing instrument that signified status and respect. "For the memoirs you keep threatening to write," Cole said, a nervous smile on his face. Sterling was touched. He lifted the pen from the case, feeling its weight. He uncapped it, admiring the gold nib. He thanked the room, and he specifically thanked Cole, placing a hand on the younger man's shoulder. He joked that he would use it to sign the final approval on their current project later that afternoon. What Dr. Sterling did not know, what no one in that room knew, was that the pen had not been purchased at a stationery store in Georgetown. It had been manufactured 3 months earlier in a windowless laboratory in Moscow, designed by the Technical Directorate of the KGB. It was not a gift. It was a delivery system for a toxic compound so rare and so potent that Western toxicologists would not even know to look for it. And Harrison Cole, the loyal assistant, was not just a grateful employee. He was a man whose life had been systematically dismantled by a foreign intelligence service until he had no choice but to hand that box to the man he admired most. To understand why Arthur Sterling was a target, one must understand the nature of the Cold War in the early 1980s. It was a conflict fought not just with nuclear stockpiles, but with precision. The Soviet Union had achieved rough parity with the United States in terms of raw explosive power, but they lagged behind in the technology of delivery. American missiles were becoming more accurate, more reliable, and harder to intercept. Dr. Arthur Sterling was the architect of that accuracy. Born in Ohio in 1923, Sterling had come of age during the Second World War, working on early radar systems before transitioning to the burgeoning field of rocketry. By 1983, he was the lead civilian scientist for Project Silent Night, a classified initiative aimed at developing a new generation of guidance systems that could operate independently of satellite navigation. The goal was to create a missile that could find its target even if a nuclear exchange had blinded the satellites above. Sterling was a man of total integrity. His security clearance was top secret charge-sensitive compartmented information, TSSCI. He was vetted annually. He had no vices that intelligence agencies typically look for. He didn't drink to excess. He had no financial debts. And since the passing of his wife in 1978, he lived a quiet, solitary life in a colonial house in Chevy Chase. His only passion was his work. He would often stay at the laboratory until late into the evening, poring over schematics, calculating drift rates, and writing notes in the leather-bound journals he kept in a safe in his office. The KGB had been aware of Sterling since 1979. Their residency in Washington had identified him as a high-value target, designated by the code name Architect. Initially, the goal had been recruitment. They had sent illegal officers to bump into him at academic conferences, to engage him in conversation at the library he frequented on weekends. But Sterling was impervious to these approaches. He was polite but distant, uninterested in politics or money. When a Swedish academic approached him in 1981 offering a lucrative consulting fee for a lecture series in Europe, Sterling had reported the contact to the FBI security officer at the lab the very next morning. By 1983, the strategic calculus had changed. The Kremlin was gripped by paranoia. The aging Soviet leadership believed that the United States was preparing for a first strike. They needed to disrupt American technological progress by any means necessary. If they couldn't buy Sterling and they couldn't compromise him, they had to remove him. But a violent elimination was risky. A car accident or a shooting would trigger a massive investigation and potentially lead to war. They needed something quieter. They needed a natural cause. They needed someone on the inside. This brings us to the tragedy of the operation. The KGB did not target Sterling directly. They targeted the people around him. They built a map of his social and professional network, looking for a weak link. They looked at his deputies, his neighbors, his cleaning staff, and finally, their gaze settled on the young, eager assistant who managed his calendar and brewed his coffee. Harrison Cole was everything Arthur Sterling was not. Young, financially unstable, and desperate for validation. Born in rural Virginia, Cole had clawed his way into a good university on scholarships and loans, graduating with a degree in administration. He had landed the job at the Applied Physics Lab through a combination of charm and persistence, viewing it as a stepping stone to a career in Washington politics. But the reality of life in D.C. was crushing him. By 1982, Cole was living beyond his means. He had rented an apartment in Adams Morgan that was too expensive. He leased a car he couldn't afford, and he was trying to keep up with a social circle of lobbyists and congressional aides who came from family money. Cole's downfall began not with ideology, but with a card game. He had developed a habit of attending underground poker games in Northern Virginia, telling himself that one big win would clear his debts. Instead, the debts compounded. By the spring of 1983, he owed nearly $40,000 to a loan shark operation that was, unbeknownst to him, being monitored by Soviet assets. The KGB didn't run the gambling ring, but they had informants within the criminal underworld of the capital. When Cole's name appeared on a list of debtors, a handler at the Soviet embassy, a man operating under the cover of a cultural attaché named Viktor Volkov, took notice. Volkov checked Cole's employment records and realized he had access to the inner sanctum of the Applied Physics Lab. The recruitment was brutal in its simplicity. Volkov didn't approach Cole with offers of friendship or ideological debate. He approached him with leverage. It happened on a humid evening in July 1983. Cole was leaving a bar, slightly intoxicated, worrying about a payment deadline, when a black sedan pulled up alongside him. Two men asked him to get in. When Cole refused, they showed him a series of photographs. The photos were devastating. They showed Cole exchanging cash with known criminals. They showed him using cocaine at a party, a recreational habit he had indulged in only twice. But that was enough to strip him of his security clearance and send him to prison. But the final photo was the one that broke him. It was a picture of his younger sister, who was studying at a university in London. The man in the car, who spoke American English with a flat, menacing affect, explained the situation clearly. The debt could disappear. The photos could disappear. His sister could finish her studies in safety. All Cole had to do was provide copies of Dr. Sterling's schedule. "We don't want secrets," the man lied. "We just want to know when he travels. We are industrial competitors, nothing more." Cole, terrified and hungover, agreed. He thought he could handle it. He thought he could give them something innocuous and then find a way out. He didn't realize that in the world of espionage, there is no such thing as a small favor. Once you say yes, you belong to them. For the first 3 months, the requests were mundane. Cole would leave envelopes in dead drops, a hollowed-out tree in Rock Creek Park, a magnetic box behind a dumpster in Alexandria. The envelopes contained copies of Sterling's public itinerary, lists of conferences he planned to attend, and the names of visitors to the office. In return, envelopes of cash appeared in Cole's mailbox. He paid off his gambling debts. He started sleeping a little better, convincing himself that he wasn't really hurting anyone. After all, Sterling's schedule wasn't a blueprint for a missile. It was just administrative data. But the trap was designed to tighten. In October 1983, Volkov requested a meeting. This time, it wasn't in a car. It was in a safe house, an innocuous apartment in Arlington. Volkov sat across from Cole at a small kitchen table. He was calm, professional, and terrifying. He laid out the new reality. The industrial competitor's story was dropped. Volkov revealed who he was. He revealed that every payment Cole had accepted had been documented. He played a recording of Cole accepting the initial deal. "You are a Soviet spy, Harrison," Volkov said. "If the FBI finds out, you will go to prison for 20 years. Your life will be over." Cole began to weep. He begged to be let go. Volkov ignored the tears. He pushed a folder across the table. "Dr. Sterling is working on a project that threatens global stability. He is a dangerous man. We need to stop his work." "I can't get you the blueprints," Cole stammered. "The safe is biometric. I don't have the codes." "We don't want the blueprints anymore," Volkov said softly. "We want him to stop working." Volkov explained the plan. They were not asking Cole to shoot Sterling. They were not asking him to plant a bomb. They were asking him to give a gift. "It is a stress inducer," Volkov lied. He claimed the pen contained a chemical agent that would cause mild confusion, fatigue, and memory loss. It would make Sterling incompetent. It would force him to retire. "He will live," Volkov promised. "He will simply be unable to work. He will go home, garden, and enjoy his pension. And you will be free. We will pay you $50,000, and we will never contact you again." Cole wanted to believe it. He needed to believe it. The alternative was accepting that he was being asked to commit a capital crime. He clung to the lie that it was just an incapacitating agent. He told himself that Sterling was old, that he deserved to retire anyway. He engaged in the mental gymnastics that all traitors perform when their backs are against the wall. He agreed to deliver the package. The pen arrived in the United States via a diplomatic pouch, bypassing customs. It was a masterpiece of lethal engineering. The KGB's technical experts had taken a genuine Mont Blanc body and hollowed out the ink reservoir. In its place, they had installed a dual-chamber mechanism. The upper chamber contained standard black ink, allowing the pen to write normally for a short period. This was a crucial deception. If Sterling tested the pen, it had to work. The lower chamber, however, contained the payload. It was not a confusion agent, as Volkov had claimed. It was a concentrated solution of a rare heavy metal isotope suspended in a solvent that was designed to be absorbed through the skin. The trigger mechanism was located in the grip section of the pen. The resin had been micro-perforated. When the user twisted the barrel to extend the nib, a microscopic amount of the toxin would be pressed through the pores of the material. It wouldn't be wet to the touch. It would feel like a slight tackiness, perhaps a bit of humidity on the fingers. Once on the skin, the solvent would carry the toxin into the bloodstream within minutes. The isotope was designed to migrate to the bone marrow and the kidneys. It would not kill instantly. It was a slow-acting radiological poison. The symptoms, fatigue, hair loss, immune system collapse, would mimic aggressive leukemia or aplastic anemia. By the time the victim died, the toxin would have decayed into a stable, undetectable element. It was the perfect murder weapon for the Cold War, silent, delayed, and medically ambiguous. Cole received the package on November 10th, He was instructed to keep it in his refrigerator until the day of the presentation to ensure the chemical stability of the solvent. For 2 days, Cole lived with the weapon in his apartment, hidden behind a carton of milk. He barely slept. He paced his living room, staring at the refrigerator door, imagining the FBI bursting in, but the fear of Volkov was greater than the fear of his conscience. He knew that if he failed, the photos of his sister would be released, or worse. He was a rat in a maze, and the only exit was through Dr. Sterling. We returned to the break room on that Tuesday afternoon. Cole watched as Sterling held the pen. The room was warm, smelling of stale coffee and cheap cake. Cole felt a line of sweat trickling down his back. "It's beautiful, Harrison," Sterling said, turning the pen in the light. "Truly." "Try it out, Arthur," one of the other engineers urged. "See how it writes." Cole's heart stopped. He hadn't expected Sterling to use it immediately. Sterling pulled a napkin from the table. He twisted the barrel. The mechanism engaged. Cole watched, holding his breath. Sterling uncapped the nib and wrote his signature on the napkin. Arthur Sterling. The ink flowed smoothly. The black lines were crisp, smooth as silk, Sterling said, smiling. He recapped the pen and clipped it into his shirt pocket, right over his heart. The transfer was complete. The toxin was now on Sterling's fingertips. As he ate his cake, as he shook hands with his colleagues, the invisible molecules were already beginning their journey through his dermis, entering his capillaries and circulating through his body. Cole felt a wave of nausea. He excused himself, claiming he needed to answer a phone call, and rushed to the men's room. He locked himself in a stall and vomited. He washed his face with cold water, staring at his pale reflection in the mirror. He had done it. He was free. Or so he thought. The first symptoms appeared 3 days later. It was Friday, and Sterling was in a meeting with the Navy liaisons. He suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. He had to grip the edge of the conference table to steady himself. He apologized, blaming a skipped breakfast. By the weekend, the fatigue had set in. It wasn't just tiredness. It was a profound cellular exhaustion. Sterling spent Saturday in bed, unable to muster the energy to read the newspaper. He told his daughter, who called on Sunday, that he think he had caught a flu bug going around the lab. On Monday, Sterling didn't come to work. This was unprecedented. Cole took the call. Sterling sounded weak, his voice thready. "Just a bad virus, Harrison," Sterling said. "I'll be back in a day or two. Keep the files on the desk in order." "Of course, doctor," Cole said. "Take your time. Get well." Cole hung up the phone, his hands shaking. He knew it wasn't a virus. He knew exactly what was happening. The guilt was eating him alive. He began drinking heavily at night, trying to drown out the voice in his head that called him a murderer. By the second week, Sterling was hospitalized. His white blood cell count had plummeted. His kidneys were failing. The doctors at Walter Reed Army Medical Center were baffled. They ran tests for everything: infectious diseases, heavy metals, autoimmune disorders. The diagnosis came back as acute idiopathic aplastic anemia. His bone marrow had simply stopped producing blood cells. Sterling was moved to a sterile isolation room. His skin had turned a grayish pallor. He was losing his hair. Cole visited him once. He was cleared by security, as he was a trusted aide. He stood outside the glass partition, wearing a mask and gown. Sterling was awake, but barely. He saw Cole and tried to smile. He pointed weakly to the bedside table. There, sitting next to a cup of water, was the black pen. I was trying to write some notes," Sterling wheezed. "Can't seem to hold it." Cole stared at the pen. It was sitting there, a loaded gun in a hospital room. He knew he should take it. He should steal it and throw it in the Potomac River. If the doctors tested the pen, they might find the residue. But he couldn't move. He was paralyzed by the horror of what he was seeing. The man who had mentored him, who had signed his birthday cards and recommended him for promotions, was dissolving before his eyes. "I'll keep the office running, Arthur," Cole whispered. "Don't worry about anything." He left the hospital and never went back. While the doctors treated the symptoms, the security apparatus of the Department of Defense began to ask questions. Dr. Sterling was a TS-SCI clearance holder. Sudden, unexplained illnesses in such personnel always triggered a counterintelligence review. The investigation was assigned to Special Agent Robert Miller of the Naval Investigative Service, NIS, working in conjunction with the FBI. Miller was a cynical veteran of counter-espionage. He didn't believe in coincidences. A healthy 60-year-old man doesn't just have his bone marrow shut down overnight, Miller told his team. I want a tox screen for everything, and I want a sweep of his office and his home. The FBI team swept Sterling's office at the lab. They checked for radiation. They checked for bugs. They found nothing. They interviewed the staff. Everyone spoke highly of Sterling. Everyone mentioned the birthday party. He was so happy, the secretary said, especially with the gift Harrison gave him. What gift? Miller asked. The pen, the Mont Blanc. Miller made a note, a pen. It seemed innocent enough, but in the paranoia of the Cold War, even the innocent was suspect. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Sterling's condition was critical. On December 12, 1983, 4 weeks after the birthday party, Dr. Arthur Sterling passed away. The official cause of death was multiple organ failure due to complications from aplastic anemia. The tragedy was reported in the internal newsletters of the defense community. A brilliant light had gone out. The Soviet Union had achieved its objective. The Silent Night project was delayed by months as a new director had to be vetted and brought up to speed. The institutional knowledge that died with Sterling was irreplaceable. But the case wasn't closed. Agent Miller wasn't satisfied. He requested an autopsy, specifically asking for a radiologic analysis of the bone tissue. The autopsy results took weeks. It was now January 1984. Harrison Cole had returned to work, a ghost of his former self. He had lost weight. He was jumpy. He had received his final payment from Volkov, $50,000 in cash, which was currently hidden in a shoebox in his closet. Volkov had vanished. The KGB handler had rotated back to Moscow immediately after the operation was deemed a success, leaving no loose ends. Cole was alone. Then the toxicology report came back. It was an anomaly in the mass spectrometry data, a tiny spike of thallium, but not normal thallium. It was an isotope that didn't exist in nature. It was a synthetic marker. Miller knew what he was looking at. This wasn't a disease. It was an assassination. The investigation shifted into high gear. The FBI focused on the timeline. The symptoms started 3 days after the birthday party. They looked at the guest list. They looked at the gift. "Where is the pen?" Miller asked Sterling's daughter during an interview. "It was with his personal effects at the hospital," she said. "I have it in a box at home." Miller sent a hazmat team to retrieve the pen. They treated it like a piece of unexploded ordnance. It was taken to the FBI laboratory in Quantico. The analysis was conclusive. The grip of the pen tested positive for the isotope. The mechanism was discovered. The ink reservoir was dissected. It was a sophisticated, state-of-the-art delivery system that no amateur could have built. Miller now had the murder weapon. He needed the murderer. He looked at the purchase history. Mont Blanc pens have serial numbers. The FBI contacted the manufacturer. The serial number on Sterling's pen did not exist in their registry. It was a counterfeit, a perfect copy made with molds, but the serial number was a random string of digits that didn't match the German factory's sequence. Miller went back to the interviews. Who gave him the pen? Harrison Cole. On February 2, 1984, Harrison Cole was asked to come to the security office at the Applied Physics Lab for a routine debriefing regarding Dr. Sterling's files. He walked into the room to find Agent Miller and 2 other men in suits. The door was locked behind him. Cole knew it was over. He didn't even try to fight. The weeks of guilt and terror had hollowed him out. He sat down in the metal chair, looking small and defeated. Miller placed a photo of the disassembled pen on the table. "Tell us about the gift, Harrison," Miller said. Cole stared at the photo. He started to cry. Not the sobbing of a man trying to save himself, but the weeping of a man who is relieved that the waiting is finally done. "I didn't think he would die," Cole whispered. "They told me he would just get sick. They told me he would retire." "Who told you?" Miller asked. "The man in the gray coat. Victor." Over the next 6 hours, Cole confessed everything. He told them about the gambling debts. He told them about the photos of his sister. He told them about the recruitment, the dead drops, and the final meeting in the safe house. He gave them the location of the shoebox with the cash. He gave them descriptions of Volkov. He was cooperating fully, desperate for some kind of redemption, but he knew there was none to be had. He had murdered a man who loved him like a son. The arrest of Harrison Cole was kept quiet for months. The intelligence community needed to assess the damage. They needed to know if Cole had passed any technical secrets. The interrogation logs revealed that he had only passed schedules and administrative data, but the loss of Sterling was a strategic blow. The FBI used Cole's confession to expel 3 Soviet diplomats from Washington, identifying them as intelligence officers involved in the support network for the operation. Viktor Volkov was already in Moscow, beyond the reach of American justice, receiving a commendation for a successful active measure. Cole's trial was held in a closed session due to the classified nature of the evidence. His defense attorney tried to argue duress, citing the threats against his sister, but the judge was unmoved. Cole had had multiple opportunities to go to the FBI. He could have reported the first contact. He could have reported the blackmail. Instead, he had taken the money. He had taken the pen. Harrison Cole was convicted of espionage and conspiracy to commit murder. He was sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Dr. Sterling was buried in Arlington National Cemetery, his service to his country during World War II, granting him that honor. His gravestone makes no mention of the manner of his death. It simply lists his name, his dates, and the inscription, "He guided us through the night." The Silent Night project was eventually completed, though it took 2 years longer than planned. The guidance systems Sterling designed are still in use today, sitting silently in silos and submarines, a testament to his genius. Harrison Cole spent the rest of his life in the United States Penitentiary, Florence High. He became a librarian in the prison, organizing books just as he had organized files for Sterling. He never accepted visitors. He died in 2014 of natural causes. The pen remains in the FBI's Black Museum at J. Edgar Hoover Building, inside a sealed glass case labeled Evidence to Rate 4902. To the casual observer, it looks like a simple, elegant writing instrument, a tool for creation. But in the context of the Cold War, it is a reminder of how the conflict turned ordinary objects into weapons, and ordinary people into instruments of destruction. The Soviets didn't need a missile to kill Dr. Sterling. They didn't need a sniper. They just needed a young man with a gambling problem and a desire to be accepted. They used the trust Sterling had for his assistant as the delivery vector for the poison. This story serves as a chilling reminder of the human cost of espionage. It wasn't just about stealing secrets. It was about finding the cracks in a human life and prying them open until everything fell apart. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Sterling case. If you found this story compelling, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more declassified histories from the Cold War.